Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all, or good evening. Once again, you are welcome here on the Avail Tech Conscience platform. So, it's making international headlines. American President Donald Trump is extremely disappointed. The entire American administration is disappointed with both parties in the conflict, namely Ukraine and Russia. America, with President Donald Trump not lingering in a bad dream, is looking to take another path. So, the American president has threatened to move on to completely abandon the negotiations between Russia and Ukraine if there is no agreement. As it seems there are people who are there to throw a wrench in the works, that's one. And secondly, you have these two parties, each making the conditions difficult. However, Donald Trump says he has more important things to do. So, what is really bothering Donald Trump? What is Russia's reaction? This is what we will see in this video conference, ladies and gentlemen, which I humbly ask you to share. Share it as much as possible, give it lots of likes, and don't forget to click on subscribe to follow the page. This ensures you won't miss our video conferences. So, let's dive deep. The United States is threatening to abandon the negotiations very soon. Here is what Donald Trump warns. And before Donald Trump speaks on this in the Oval Office, it should be noted that it was the U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who first made the statement. He said that if Ukraine and Russia are unable to reach an agreement, very soon the United States of America will abandon and move on to something else. He said it on Western media. So, in the evening, in the Oval Office, meaning he spoke in the morning, yesterday, April 18th, 2025, in the evening, in the Oval Office, journalists asked Donald Trump the question. You know, he is very accessible. The media are there. He really enjoys the media show. He likes that. So the question was asked, what does he think about what Marco Rubio had to say? His response left everyone wanting more. Yes, in any case, we sense the disappointment in him. So, Marco Rubio threatened to move on to something else. He said this. He says, if the United States were to establish that peace is not possible, we will move on to something else. That was Marco Rubio who said it. He says, that's what he said. So, on his side, what did Donald Trump say? Donald Trump, first of all, it's clear that he is tired of continuing to talk about Andrei Zelensky, Vladimir Putin, Macron. He is tired. So it's a weariness that drives him to threaten. So, what did he say concretely? He says Marco is right, Marco Rubio is right to say it. We want it to stop. So, he says, if for one reason or another, one of the two parties makes it difficult, makes things very difficult, we will simply say, you are stupid. You are, I don't want to say the second word. It starts with a B. It's an offensive remark. He says, you are awful people, and we will pass our turn. This is what Donald Trump stated, but he continued by saying, but I hope we won't have to do that. So, what needs to be said is that since he came to power, it's now, I believe, 100 days, or soon to be 100 days. He who had promised to solve the problem in Ukraine in 24 hours is soon at 100 days. And he sees that there isn't even a glimmer of hope. The moratorium that had been found to suspend the conflict, thus a ceasefire, that he was able to obtain separately, because he obtained it with Ukraine, then he obtained it with Russia. The moratorium was not respected. Ukraine violated it. Russia also followed suit. So, on these aspects, he says no, he cannot. He cannot. Russia also declared that the moratorium on respecting the 30 days has passed, as if what Russia was doing had nothing to do with Russia being in the moratorium. Despite the surgical strikes that the city of Sumy has experienced, despite the surgical strikes that Kherson and Dnipro have received in recent hours, Russia does not acknowledge this. For Russia, it is still respecting the ceasefire. Obviously, when Ukraine violates the ceasefire, Russia will also join this festival. Russia says nothing. It simply states that the moratorium has passed. So it's not even a matter of finding an agreement or anything. Russia respected the moratorium. Initially, Ukraine violated it. Russia also joined in the festival of violation. They all violated it. And this is what is irritating. Donald Trump is tired of it. Donald Trump says it can't continue like this. He has threatened, but he says, well, but he hopes that they won't reach that level. So one of the big questions we ask ourselves is, if America gives up, who would be able to bring the two positions, Russian and Ukrainian, closer? And by the way, what? The person who comes? The real problem of Ukraine is that the Ukrainian leader does not want to leave power. Zelensky does not want to leave. This is already known by everyone. And if we accept the fact that Zelensky does not want to leave power, we must return to the reality that the conflict will always continue. Because if elections are organized, Zelensky will not pass. But as long as the conflict continues, Zelensky continues, in the name of martial law, to be the president, even if the Ukrainian Central Electoral Commission has started to raise its voice, saying that elections will need to be organized, even if America and Russia have considered setting up a transitional government. It must be said, by the way, that these are statements that Ukraine does not appreciate. Not at all. Ukraine does not like that. So, in any case, ladies and gentlemen, here is the big question. We are asking, who can solve this problem? Perhaps the final solution will be to remove Zelensky. When Zelensky is removed, the situation in Ukraine will find a solution. But how should he be removed? Here is the other question that arises. Ladies and gentlemen, this was the headline of international news. Thank you for sharing it as much as possible. I will be back shortly with new updates by the grace of God Almighty. So, this was the voice of your one and only samurai.